Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight. I'm Mike Kenichi, and I'm very excited tonight because we have a very special guest. She's done a number of things. You'll remember her from MTV's Remote Control. Who could forget her as the one and only Maggie on Sliders? That's only scratching the surface, though. I mean, she is multi-talented, has done everything. Even on a show I love, 90210, she was tremendous there as well. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Mrs. Kari Wuhrer. And Kari, I want to thank you for coming on today. It's a real honor for me.
Thanks, Mike. I mean, I'm grateful to be here. I was running around doing stuff all around the house this morning, and I almost forgot about you. And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm making a whole patio out back, lifting stones." And then it was like 3:30, and I was like, "I gotta go inside." So good thing you can't smell me.
Well, I do appreciate you taking the time to do this. And Kari, it's interesting. Anytime I talk to somebody, there's always a great story to tell. And what's, really amazing about you is when you were a young kid, you would actually sneak out of your house to go perform because that's how much you love performing. And that showed me and it told me that you were so determined to be successful in this type of business that even if it meant you might get in trouble by your parents, you were willing to take that chance because you wanted to be the very best. So just talk about, when the love for acting really came about for you.
And my dad was a cop, by the way, so
Yeah.
I was really stealthy. Um, let's see. I can remember an incident that happened when I was 3 years old. We used to live in this little tiny house in one of those post-war neighborhoods in Connecticut, and had a big picture window, and it was snowing out. And I was really little, and I can't picture myself. I can picture this perfect little girl with blonde ponytails and curls because I was used to sit in front of the TV set and wait for Family Affair to come on. I don't know if anybody remembers that show.
That's a great show. Yep. I
Right,
had Kathy Garver on. Yeah.
Mike? Come on.
And I had Kathy Garver on like a couple weeks ago. So, I mean, she was great.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw one of those pharmaceutical ads, and the girl and the old lady in the ad was so familiar. So I Googled it, and it was the girl who played Sissy on Family Affair. Now this old lady.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Which is Kathy. Yep.
Kathy, right, right,
Yeah.
right. That's what I'm saying. So she's beautiful, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, so when I saw that show, I wanted to be that little girl. And maybe I don't know what it was about this girl, but I just kind of wanted, and I don't know if it was I wanted to be an actress on TV or I wanted to be that character. But maybe I thought from like the time I was 3 that if I was on TV, that I would actually live those lives. It was
Right.
crazy. And so that's just kind of what got me into acting as a kid. I mean, I grew out of that, obviously, but yeah, especially during my pre-adolescence and my adolescence, I would go and audition for every um the Brookfield Playhouse where I grew up. And I would audition for all the plays, and it was adults and everything. And occasionally they needed a young person, and I would always be there. I'll never forget Wendell McNeil, who was the director of a couple plays I did there. He was a fantastic director and coach, small, tiny town. And then one of my teachers, um, Liz, she was on that plane from Scotland at Christmas back in
Yeah.
the, yeah, it was late 80s, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, people like that will fill my head if I have work that, you know, takes any real serious effort, And I think I attribute my love for acting to those guys. But I don't know how I feel about it now.
Yeah. And folks, I wanted to make one point here. She mentioned she was from Brookfield, Connecticut. Well, I'm from Derby, Connecticut, and I've lived in Connecticut my whole life. So we're only about 50 minutes away from each other where we grew up. And
Yeah.
Kari, that's always special for me when I see somebody from the state I've lived in my whole life, make it big. So you're always going to root for that person. But it just seems like to me, Kari, from what I could tell, you every time you've done something in your life, you have made it a point that you didn't just want to be a part of it. You wanted to make your mark. And anything I've ever seen you in, you have done that. I mean, the work ethic to me, like I told you, it seems like it started at a very young age, and you have to have that in anything you want to do in life. You have to have a passion. And I think that's why you've been so successful, because of your passion for this.
Thank you, Mike. I think maybe you're right, but I also think that there was a curiosity, and everything I did, I approached as a student, and everybody around me was my master. And that, I think, made the experience for me more in the moment than waiting for some result. I don't even think I've ever really watched one of my movies, sat down and watched it all the way through, maybe unless I was at a screening or, premiere or something like that. But for me, it was really the process, and I always just considered myself a student. And I never got bored in this industry. Being surrounded by creative people from so many different expertise, so many different crafts all coming together to make one thing. It's freaking beautiful, man.
And the thing
that's what I
is,
love.
right. And Kari, obviously you would eventually go to New York University. And of course, I mean, you got to be a part of the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts in London. But in high school, I mean, you clearly did a lot of theater productions for your school, correct?
I did a couple for my school. By that time, I was auditioning and taking classes in New York City. So I was always gone midway through school or right after school. I always had to catch a train and go into New York. And a lot of the girls, a lot of the theater club really resented me. I had to share a role with another girl because they couldn't really rely on me. And I really regret that now, because I think what I've been looking for forever when my work is community. I mean, I guess in my life, but I wasn't building that community in high school, which I really, really regret. Because then by the time I got to college, my head was already looking towards the future, that I really wasn't in that community either.
Right.
Yeah. And so I didn't get, I didn't get the leg up from a lot of people. I sort of shut myself off from that. I have no idea why, but I super regret that.
Right. And I mean, you hope to not have many regrets in the career. You're always going to have one or two, but if that's all you have, it's not that big of a deal. But I would say you were 19 years old when you really got your first break. It was a drama film called Fire with Fire. You were only 19, I think. So as a young teenager, and I always say this, Kari, that when you're young like that, you're still, you're mature, but you're still maturing. So maybe you weren't as nervous back then because you were still a kid and you just kind of rolled with the, punches.
Yeah, I always had a secret power in confidence when I was younger. I can't even explain what it was, but what am I even trying to say? It was like I think in my own mind, I put the magic sauce in the stew. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I just had this confidence where I felt that way no matter what. And I didn't
Right.
try to, chew the scenery or overpower a scene. I learned how to do that later from John Voight, and ew, it doesn't feel good. But I thought I added the special sauce. I'll look back on some of this stuff now and I'll be like, what? But it was just something in my own brain. And I know a few women that have it way stronger than I ever did. And they had a lot of support around them. That's what I was missing. I didn't have a lot of support around me, you know?
Yeah. And Kari, in your spare time over the years, things like that, I mean, you do a lot of things that people probably wouldn't know about. Number one, one of your best hobbies that you love a lot is pottery. And what people probably may not know, I mean, they know because you are a singer and things like that, but you also played the guitar and I believe you played the flute as well, correct?
I did as a kid. And I had this mentor that played the flute, and so I thought I had to pick up the flute. And my dad's a musician, my grandpa. And so once I started, really playing this flute, my parents bought me this beautiful vintage silver Gemeinhardt flute. It's like, well, I was dying for it, but I wasn't that good. And so when I was in college, I met this guy, this boy, and he had a bunch of older brothers, and they were all musicians. And his older brother could play the flute like you wouldn't believe. He was Ian Anderson. He was insane. And I had to give him my silver Gemeinhardt so it could actually get played by somebody who was great. And I was just thinking about that yesterday too. Yeah, that flute that my parents gave me for Christmas. And that's kind of why I stopped really making music, because I love it so much that I feel like I don't. I mean, I can make it for myself and I can have fun and whatever, but to try to go out there and, be in the same world as people that have like doing it their whole lives every day, inside and out, and it's everything to them. They can go and be the pop stars. For me, I was split. I had a lot of different pedals going in a lot of different places. And ultimately, I just wanted to be an actor.
Right. And, I always felt like this too, Kari, that, I used to play the clarinet as a kid and then I tried the flute and it was so hard for me because I always felt like you had to blow on it, but you didn't. Then that's what people forget. And I always felt like it was very challenging to play and very hard to play. I mean, did you ever have any challenges playing it? Or it seems like to me, you just like thrived right away when you did it.
I mean, yeah, I can still pick up a flute. And yes, you blow across, not into it. But once you get it, it's like riding a bike. So then you always have it. For me, it was, uh, I wasn't doing it 8 hours a day, you know, and I knew I
Right.
was never going to. And I saw this kid and I saw how beautiful he played and how much it was everything. Yeah, so I gave him my flute. It was a relief, actually, Mike. I mean, practicing is a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think you need escapes too in your life when you're going through stuff and you have to have stuff you enjoy. And I always look at, yeah, people play the guitar because they want to be in a band, they want to do music, but people also play it for recreation. It's fun, it relaxes you. And it seems like to me, you played it more for the fun of it than you did to try to be,
Yeah.
successful at it.
Well, it's funny. I got a record deal with Rick Rubin when I first got to LA. And I had been making music with a rock band out of Long Island. It's a great band. And I was recording and I had a demo. And the whole reason that I wanted to do the movie Ford Fairlane was because I knew I would meet Rick Rubin and I could give him my demo. So I was really split about acting, music. I was just influenced by so many different things. But I just thought I was just so full of confidence, and I was on MTV, and I was like, I just walked up to him and gave him some comments, and he listened to my demo and signed me to a deal the next day. But it wasn't about the music. But I
Right.
didn't know that, you know. For 2 years, we just sat around and watched Married with Children, and I'd be like, "Can we make music now?" And he'd give me some tapes with some beats, and I'd write songs, and he'd be like, "Too many words," and he literally said that, and it just wasn't happening. And I was like, "What am I doing?" I'm almost, and I don't even want to say it, but it was uncomfortable. It was super uncomfortable, and I didn't realize it for a really long time. I thought this is Hollywood. So I met other people and made music with other people and stuff like that, but the only music I ever really released was the Shiny record, and now my daughter is making music, and she's going to NYU, and
Yeah.
yeah, but on a totally different path, on a way more intellectual path.
Yeah.
She's a writer, so yeah.
And you know what? I mean, I think of that, and like I say, with anything, whether it's music, whether it's acting, whether it's a book, you have to have great writing. And you could be a great actress, great actor. If you don't have that writing, no, people aren't going to buy it. So I always say that the people behind the pen and paper, they play the biggest part in making stuff, work and things like that.
Yeah, it's just uh, there's a lot of AI coming into the picture, and it's going to do a lot of damage to people who are really creative, and it's going to really dull our senses for human creative touches, and we're going to lose the feeling of a true soul in a lot of things. And I believe that. And both of my children are in school 3,000 miles apart from each other to be writers, and all you have to do is press a button on chat GPT or one of these things and your script is done. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Something big is going to happen, though, I'll tell you that, Mike. Something
Yeah,
big.
I do not doubt it. And Kari, you brought up Married with Children, and that was really like Fox's first big show where it kind of got Fox on the map.
Yeah.
And MTV had been popular, no doubt about it, with the music videos. But Remote Control was like that first show that really got MTV, where people said, oh, wow, this is something different. We could, and that show was so creatively done well. And I mean, the way it was, just talk about your time there, because I used to love that show. And that was really a great way for, MTV to kind of close out the 80s, those couple years,
Yeah.
going into the 90s. I mean, it was just tremendous.
It was incredible. It was so colorful and so funny. I've never laughed harder in my life daily. I remember we were shooting on 71st Street in York, I think. And I was living just up the street on 81st Street. And I used to get to the studio by roller skating. And I would roller skate. And by the time the show was airing, I would be roller skating home with people chasing me. That's how much they love the show. And Ken Ober, rest his soul, was
Yeah.
just so quick and so smart. So smart. And and all the producers and the writers were so smart, and so a lot of Canadians. And they really had this symbiotic thing that happens. It can't last forever, obviously. Culture changes, and they fired me, but it was glorious. We felt like Elvis for a little bit, and it was funny, and it was so colorful. They just
Oh, yeah.
got inducted into the Game Show Hall of Fame. Remote Control did, in Buffalo, New York. It's a real thing. And I went to a little interview with a bunch of the producers, and just kind of listened to really what happened behind the scenes on that show, and how they were pushing the boundaries. And you look at it now and you're like, boundaries? It's so tame, but it is just such a slice of pop Americana now, for sure.
And what a great theme song. I mean, I still to this day can remember that word for word. It was just tremendous, And you get to be a part of something like that, Kari, and we're going to get into more stuff, obviously.
Stop. I want to hear the theme song. Ready, set, go.
I am not a good
Dun,
singer,
dun,
so
dun, dun. Come on.
Remote Control. Now he's got his own game show. It's tremendous. I mean, that's what I really loved about the show. And it's funny, when I was in sixth grade, I'll never forget, a few of the kids in my class, they tried to do that for the talent show. They tried out for it. The problem was it was going to take up too much time for the talent show, but they did a great job doing it. They played a little Stand in the Place Where You Live by REM and things like that. So that to me is the greatest tribute, is when you see kids that age and they want to do that for their talent show. That says a lot about the impact it had.
Yeah, it did have a great impact. Unfortunately, it wasn't seen as such in in how I think the producers may have been treated afterwards. And I mean, everybody loved MTV. They wanted to stay at MTV, and then they went off and did different shows, and it just kind of wasn't the same because they broke up the team. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And unfortunately, that happens far too often. That's
yeah,
never something that's fun. I mean, you see it too much, but I mean, like I said, I'm telling you right now, like somewhere in the world, if that's on TV, there's somebody watching it. I mean, that's how good it was. And I mean, that's got it. Like I said, that's got to be something. I know it was early in your career, but that's got to be something you're extremely proud about, because I mean, you were like 21 when you started doing that.
it was my 21st birthday when I auditioned for them.
Yeah. And that's just,
Mhm.
right there alone is something to be proud of. And, I always say this, Kari, that you want to be able to work with like maybe that one big time actress or actor. And you got that opportunity when you were in a movie called The Crossing Guard. You got to work with the legendary Jack Nicholson. So talk about that, because that had to be a tremendous highlight for you. And again, you're still a person in your 20s at that time. That had to be tremendous.
That was an incredible experience because at that point I was going from movie to movie, creative movies, little movies, back then, how they had that straight to video. So kind of like what Netflix movies are. Um, and I auditioned for Sean, and there was no script. Sean Penn was the director. And I would come back and audition more. You'd give like a scene. And I remember there was this building in Malibu right on the Pacific Coast Highway. And it was this big yellow wooden building, and it had all these stairs going up to it, right? And I was working with the other actress, Beth. We had to like work together and come up with, do a scene or whatever, where we were smoking weed. And so we go in, and we're supposed to, the scene is Jack Nicholson and us. And Gary Oldman was our reader that day. So we had to do a scene with Gary Oldman, and Sean was there, and it was freaking surreal. And then Sean calls me, sends me a message. I don't know how it worked back then, that there was already, because I think we were supposed to be strippers, and there was a movie coming out where there was already a stripper playing the guitar. Because I brought my guitar to the audition and played him the song I wrote for a movie that had no script. And so like a couple days later or whatever, I get this package at my door, and it's a one of these little tiny like Casio type keyboards that had chaser lights all around it,
Right.
and with a note that said, "Write a song on this." And he goes, "And I don't want to hear it until the day we're shooting." And this is a scene I'm doing with Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
And we had to sort of get like stripped down a little bit. I'm working with Jack Nicholson in his tighty whities, basically. And I'm supposed to play this, and he's coaching me very gently and very kindly, as
Yeah.
one of the world's greatest actors was coaching me to slow down, take it easier, like really give it breath. Really, he was there for me. And the scene was about him. I was just an incendiary character,
Yeah.
thinking, but of course I wanted my side to be good, but he was concerned about me, helping me very, very gently, probably so I don't fuck up the scene, but it just felt like such an incredible concern. Sorry for the F word.
Oh, don't worry. And I've always heard that about him, that he was always helpful. And that's something that, as a fan, it makes you happy to see, because listen, not every celebrity is going to be, pleasant. There are some that aren't great, but there are so
Oh,
many that
trust me.
are. Yeah.
Mhm.
But there are so many that are. And that's why, you can't always, it's like anything in life, sports, whatever it might be. There are so many great role models and athletes, but there are some that aren't. And you can't just assume because of one or two people you meet along the way that aren't great, that's like how everybody is. So that's really awesome that, you know, you got to
what I
experience
found, Mike? I found that the more successful, or not successful, but legendary some of these actors are, the kinder they are. And it's the ones in the middle. You know their name, that can really lose themselves and become real dicks without humility in the business. And I've worked with a lot of those. A
Yeah.
lot of those that by today's standards, no way.
Right.
Way. By today's standards, oh my God, no way. I can tell you a story about a certain actor, working with him on a film I did called An Occasional Hell, directed by the wonderful Salome Bresner. And we shot
Right.
it in the South. And we were doing a scene. I was playing like a dead girl that kind of haunts them, that comes back, There's one scene where we're supposed to be in the back seat of a car, kind of doing it, messing around or whatever. This actor has his clothes off. And in between shots, he's whacking me with his appendage. I'm 25. I don't know, right? I'm like, what? Ha, ha, ha. Part of the team, part of the team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By today's standards, that guy would be in jail. So.
Yep. Lost her for a second. I'm sure we'll get her back up. You know, that happens sometimes. But as you can see, Kari is doing. Oh, there you are. I got you back. Yep. Lost you for a second.
My point was all this stuff was happening to me all the time. And I just got really strong, and to the point where if I look back on my experiences making all these movies, and I've come out of them with great appreciation, satisfaction, whatever. But if I look back, I've got to be like dealing somewhere inside with some trauma from these men. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like really bad. Yeah, there was no such thing as an intimacy coordinator or decency.
Yeah.
But
Kari.
yes, there are some great actors. Unfortunately, I did not ever really get a chance to have a woman to work with another actress to have that experience. I mean, I've worked with actresses, but on that level, hasn't happened. And I don't know if it ever will, but I would love to connect with somebody like that, and it just hasn't happened.
Yeah. Kari, I'm going to switch gears for a little bit, and I'm going to fast forward just a little bit. One of my favorite roles of yours, and only in TV can an FBI agent date the number one mobster. And your character did that in 2005 when you joined General Hospital as Reese Marshall, who I loved. I thought that character was great. And I'll tell you right now, like, to me, that's the problem. General Hospital back then used to upset me because they were doing this a lot. They got rid of Stuart Damon not long after you, and they never thought about their fans. That's how I always felt about it. But what a character you played. I mean, you were so good at playing that part. And it's funny, I'm going to get to the whole David Silver, Donna Martin thing when you played Ariel. But this was you indirectly, your character had an affair with Rick Lanson. And what upset me about that more than anything else is the two brothers were finally getting along with each other. And then they had to go and do that, the writers, to just make it that much more extreme.
We fought them about it. We fought them about it.
Really?
I mean,
Yeah.
Rick did not want to go, like his character did not want to go back to to reliving all that, relearning all the lessons again, basically. No, that was a bad move.
Yeah, it really was. But
it's what killed my character too, basically.
It did. I really felt it did. But aside from all that, I thought it was one of your most underrated roles that you ever played. And a lot of fans liked the Reese character. They really did. So talk about that experience. I know it didn't end well for you, and shame on, like I said, the writers and producers at General Hospital. But just talk about, the short time you were on there, what that experience was like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Remember when I was talking about community, finding that community that I didn't get in high school theater club because I was always off auditioning, that I didn't get in college because I was always off working or auditioning? I finally found it at General Hospital.
Yeah.
Surrounded by actors, dressing room, getting ready, makeup. Hey, could you have time run lines? All day, every day.
Yeah.
Memorizing 30 pages for a day, keeping your mind sharp, having fun, screwing up. It was the best job I ever had in my life. And I loved it so much. And I can remember driving home from work one day. I was driving a red BMW, and I had my little boy at home who was 2 years old. And I just bought this big, beautiful house in Hancock Park that was like my dream house. And I remember pulling up and going, "Oh my God, I have this great job. I have this great family. I'm gonna lose it. This cannot stay forever." And I just took a breath, and I knew something was gonna happen. I just, And then, obviously what happened, but it was just the most incredible effort of creation. And everybody can mock soap operas, blah, 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 blah. But it's like speed skating, It's like you got to do everything perfect quickly. And it's fun. I would do
Yeah.
another soap in a heartbeat. I actually was going to test for Santa Barbara, uh, and then they cut the roll. Or that's at least what they told me. Right, like before I got my nails done, I was all ready to be all soapy again. Yeah. So, wah, wah, wah. But it was the best. It was the
Yeah.
best.
And I mean, you had such great chemistry, not only with Maurice, but also with Rick. And even with I don't think it was Robin at the time. I think it was what's her name? The
Jennifer?
Carly. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Jenny.
I mean, yeah, but you had such great chemistry with all of them. And I just really felt like it's like you said, I really felt like that character could have had a lot more longevity than they did. And I just felt that was such a bad job by them. And back then, I would say from 2004 till probably 2009, they were doing a lot of that stuff at General Hospital. And I often said to myself, do they think about the fans? Because really, the fans get so invested in these characters, and then you just, do away with them. It was really disappointing.
Well, that was part of my evidentiary disclosure after they fired me and I hired a lawyer. Were all the soap opera magazines, and because I was pregnant and I
Yeah.
had just signed a contract. I think I even told one of the producers I was pregnant before I even told my husband, because I was making this big surprise. 2 weeks later, I was fired. So my character was thriving. Yes, the Rick thing, like that hit a speed bump, but I had just signed a new contract.
Right.
So it really soured me on, you know, on they really hurt me really badly because they
Yeah.
took away my family in a sense, or something that was becoming a community for me. It just sucked. But the job itself was amazing. Oh, remember Peter Horton?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
When we were on the studios doing General Hospital, he was shooting next door, and he was the director, show one of the showrunners, I think, of Class of '96 that I did back in '92.
And that was a great show too. I was disappointed that that ended so prematurely. I mean, Robin, I loved the Robin character. She was awesome.
So good. And I don't know if it was politics. I don't know what happened. I mean, the writers were brilliant. The producer was brilliant. I don't know what happened there. It was a bummer.
Yeah, it really was. But let me ask you this, Kari.
Yeah.
A lot of times I always ask people this when they have to guest star on a show, they don't know, they're not with the cast members all the time. And they really don't know their characters. They're doing a guest spot. So when you do guest spots like that and you're on one or two episodes, we mentioned Married with Children. Who could forget when you
Yes.
were Joni and you were, I think it was the Hollywood one, Kelly Does Hollywood, and you got to be on that. That was hysterical. But when you're doing guest star spots, I mean, how difficult is that? Because you might know some of the cast members, maybe you did something with them at one time, but in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, you're kind of, you know, sitting in on their show for a couple episodes, things like that. So how difficult could that be sometimes?
Um, I'm gonna let a little of the air out of my tires here, but I just kind of gravitated towards the guys. I wouldn't flirt with them or anything, but I would give them a little fascination. They would become my allies. The girls except for Tori, she was lovely, and sometimes you get hospitality, and sometimes they're having a bad week because it's difficult work or whatever. You can't judge. You just kind of got to go in and out. But in like I've been friends with Ian, since I was 16. I've known the kid
Yeah.
from the audition circuit in New York and whatever, and now we've done like Sharknado together, and I see him at conventions and stuff like that. And Jason and I worked together afterwards. He directed me in a film.
Yeah.
I knew Luke through friends, um, and our kids, but really none of the other girls. So that was, but I'll tell you, I there was a guest star on Sliders once, and she was playing this, difficult part with a baby, like, trekking up hills, and we were trying to save her. And she really wanted to do a good job. She was an actress, and she would be like, trying to get into, and they were fooling around. She's like, "Can you guys stop? Like, get out of my." She wasn't cruel, wasn't mean, or even rude. She just wanted to do the work, and they were so comfortable in their characters. They just be fucking around, but they were kind of mean to her. And I saw it, and I had to like take her under my wing and be like, "Screw those guys, whatever." And like make her feel comfortable because she needed to do her job. And I saw that shitty situation, and I didn't like it. And we're still friends to this day. Her name is Natalie Radford.
Yeah.
She's Canadian, but I love the Canadians. If you can't tell, go Canada.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Kari, I could tell you this. I wasn't going to bring this up. I was going to bring it off air, but I figure, you know what? You've shared a lot today, and I'm going to tell you this. For the longest time, I used to be a big fan of Conan O'Brien. I've never been a fan again, and you know why? Because I think it was maybe 96, 97. You were on that show, and I really felt like him and his team treated you very rudely that night, and that was it for me. Like, I just thought that was so disrespectful. And you talked about earlier how people, how they treat people that they think they're, bigger than or whatever. And I saw a side of him that night that I truly did not like. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I did not like how they treated you on your appearance that night.
No, it was terrible, and I think it was really kicked off. I mean, by Conan, but it was really fueled by Stephen Wright.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we had such a wonderful rapport backstage in the green room that I thought naturally that it would just spill onto the set later. But he did a complete 180. And both of them were in this character. I got bombarded. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
He said some silly things, but he's a TV guy. He should know the Brady Bunch and jump it on it. You know what I mean? And be there with me on it. You know, it's a terrible host who lets their guest fall flat. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just thought, for me personally, like just watching that, because I saw how you came out there. You were very friendly. You were trying to make them feel comfortable. You threw a few jokes at them, and I just felt like they were going out of their way to be rude. I did not like that, and that was it for me. Like, and listen, I never feel good when somebody gets canceled or loses a show, but I'm not gonna lie to you. Like when what Leno did to him and, kind of took that show back from him.
Yeah.
There was a part of me that didn't feel bad because I've always remembered that night. And that always bothered me because that was unnecessary.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I'm actually really glad it happened because it taught me that as an actor, even if you are promoting something or going out on a show, it's not your show. It's
Yeah.
their show, and you are a
Right.
guest. And when you feel like you're in the center of attention because you're doing a press tour or something else, you have to remember that there's a certain amount of letting them rule the conversation that has to happen. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It was like my first talk show.
Yeah. And you know what? in the end, like you were able to rise above it, and guess what? You're still working, so shame on them. But here's I wanted to get into 90210, and here's the thing about 90210, Kari. Obviously, you're working so much, you don't have time to really follow the show. So you probably didn't know the whole David Donna backstory. I mean, they had went through some tough times. There was the Donna wouldn't sleep with him, and then David had the drug problem, and they were always able to bounce back and find each other again. And out of nowhere, the season finale, David meets this record producer, and I thought that was cool for you too, that you got to kind of do some work with Babyface that night, and Brian Austin Green, who's a great actor. But I'll tell you what, like you when you had to play the bad person, you did it so well. I mean, you really did, because your character's attitude was simple. I'm not worried about if I hurt Donna Martin. I'm trying to build this guy's career. And you showed like that, you could do any part that they give you, and you could do it very well.
Hey, who says that condom wrapper was from me? Yeah, that was good. That was a good zing. I was really happy about that. It was fun.
Yeah, and you play a part.
So great. I mean, I didn't even mention him before. He's one of the sweetest friends, and he's always lovely to me. And because I was the older woman when we did that. You know what I mean? He was still a kid, so he was kind of like, "What's up, Kari?" You know what I mean?
And Kari, you didn't get to have scenes with them, but I mean, thinking about working at that show, and now fast forward to 2025. I mean, it is so hard to believe that both Luke and Shannon are gone. I mean, it's such a shame. And, Shannon fought so hard for so many years with her battle with breast cancer. And then Luke, I mean, who expects that to ever happen to somebody at 52 years old? I mean, it was just so sad. I mean, that's the part when you work with people like that. I mean, it doesn't matter if you work with them maybe twice in your life or for a long time. The sadness has got to be there when that happens.
I mean, imagine what everybody is feeling about Matthew
Perry.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I didn't mean that, Matthew. I always remember your name. I'm just getting old. Yeah, I mean, it's travesty, but it's going to happen to all of us, Ken Ober died when he was 52.
Yeah, which is just crazy. Kari, I got to tell you this. Big Sliders fan, and when you came on in season 3, and I'll tell you, the battles that Maggie had with Wade, they are legendary. But what I loved about it was they eventually do become friends. Now, they always have a rivalry, but you could tell there's a respect for each other. But I thought that was such an important part of the series. And the thing about your character, which you did so well, is there were times as a fan you hated Maggie, and there were times you loved her. And when you could do both of those and do them well, where the fans love you and they hate you, that's tremendous acting. Talk about, and I'll tell you another thing about Sliders, Maggie. When they canceled it, I was crushed. And you could just tell the fan base that you had, because they wrote letters and Sci-Fi picked it up, and that was great. But just talk about, that's got to be, I would say, in your whole career, it's got to be top 3 of the best things you've ever done.
It bought this house.
Yeah.
And which I've gotten back from 2 marriages. So I bought this house 3 times. It was my favorite thing in the world to do, pulling up on the Universal Studio lot with your own parking space. I was driving a 57 Vet at the time. It's all pre-kids and everything, right? And going to work with Jerry O'Connell. I mean, nobody knows how funny this guy is in real. He's like campfire funny, where you're peeing your pants. And at Clavant, oh my God, my heart. Have you heard his music?
Yeah.
But yeah, my whole thing with the Wade Maggie thing, I don't know if it started offset her, off screen or on screen, really, but she was not a fan of mine, and I could totally understand why. In comes this other girl, when she's the girl in the, back then, I could understand it, not being comfortable for her, even though girl power, more girls the better. It was different back then. And my energy was a lot, and I can totally understand, but I never had anything against her in any way. I wasn't like, why is she in that scene and I'm not? Or what? Never, ever. I felt like the guest star
Yeah.
until she left. And then I felt like the star. No, not the star, but it was Jerry's show. And when Jerry left, it was really hard.
Yeah.
Although I love Charlie. Yeah, but it did get a little crazy. You knew it was spinning out of control a little bit. And then by the time Temby got there, it was almost over. But Temby was great.
Yeah. And you know what happens sometimes too, Kari? Again, whenever you switch to another network, it
Yeah,
just always seems like when you do that, and it was good for the fans. I mean, they got to continue watching their favorite show,
yeah.
but there's always changes when you switch to a new network. Something always ends up happening, whether they do away with a character or somebody leaves. And, you know,
Because
it's
they
funny.
cut the budget. They cut the
Yeah.
budget, and that's what
Yeah.
happens. And what's really weird is I seem to have done a few shows like that. Like in the class of 96, just when Fox was kind of getting started.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they thought they could afford it. I don't know. We were shooting in Canada because LA, everybody left because it's too expensive. And they didn't, and then, but Fox then became big with 90210.
Yeah.
And then we did, Sliders, and it starts a new network, the Sci-Fi Channel, not really that new, but new. And they are getting good shows, and then that fizzles out, and now Sci-Fi has this big following,
Right.
even media, and like Us Magazine or TMZ, they weren't around when I was, on TV shows and stuff like that. You never had to worry about, you had your 5 or 10 paparazzi and whatever, but there wasn't scandal really. There wasn't, let's get the picture so we could sell. It just wasn't like that. But when TMZ wasn't around, you can imagine a world without TMZ. So my career didn't have a chance to or my shows didn't have a chance to, because of how the media can uplift shows, and people
Yeah.
by giving them exposure.
And, I know you probably didn't plan this. Obviously, you didn't. But how ironic is it? Your character's name was Maggie, and your childhood friend was named Maggie, if I'm not mistaken. Correct? Didn't you have a childhood friend named Maggie? Right?
I did. Maggie Zakara.
Yes. So when you think about that, I mean, again, you're playing a character. This is the writers who came up with the name, but it is kind of cool that somebody that was your best friend in childhood, you get to take on her name, even if it's indirectly that way. But I thought that was a pretty ironic thing.
I don't know if I've ever thought about that. You know how when you have a friend named Joe and then
Yeah.
you have another friend named Joe? Just when you say Joe and you look at them, it's a completely different name than when you say Joe when you look at your other friend, because the name is their face, their eyes, right?
Yeah.
And it becomes that person. You know what I mean? So I kind
Right.
of, that's what I mean. There are a lot of roles, like a lot of names, like lovers that you have to play that were your exes. Yeah.
Right. So,
I guess I
Kari, let
didn't
me,
really get the question. I think I was
yeah,
going
well,
more in a esoteric direction than
no, what I was saying
the
was,
sweetness of it.
yeah, what I was saying though was it's pretty cool that she was your childhood friend and you got to play a role with her name. Like,
Yeah.
maybe when she's looking at you and she's watching that, she's thinking, wow, that's pretty cool. She has my name, just that little tidbit that maybe you didn't realize at the time because you're working all the time and you really can't think about, A, B, and C. You got to worry about D. So, I mean,
She sent me a picture not too long ago of the two of us. There's a lot of us that had this group that are doing really well and kind of spread out, and you can see their things on Instagram or just YouTube. It's crazy, and they're from Connecticut.
yeah,
James Aguiar, he's all over Instagram. He's like a big fashion stylist, and that was like our little group.
absolutely.
I hung out
Now,
with
let me,
I hung out with the kids that were closeted gay or foreign exchange students. Those are the only people that would hang out with me.
yeah. Let me ask you this, Kari.
Yeah.
you've done over work too, and that I think that's always fun as well because you just do the voice. You don't have to worry about makeup and all that stuff. You kind of just go out there and whatever they give you, you put your voice on it. You've done those Marble uh, movies, the Marble Experience, which was a great one, and Maria Hill, which you voice. So I mean, it's got to be fun when you could do something like that and do voiceover work.
It's the best work. I mean, it's exhausting. And obviously, you have to take care of your voice. But yeah, you got to get into the character at home a little bit. I find it's easier than showing up and, you know, sh- I mean, when I did the Banshee, I'm not going to Banshee out, but you got to get into it a little bit. But it's so much fun. You get so many takes, and then the fight scenes and the screams. I'm really good at screams. Really good at screams. I should probably make a career just on selling my screams. But it's the best. And I got to play good guys and bad guys.
Yeah. And I think that's cool. And you have played a lot of like bad guys in your career, but like how you've played them, you've never like went to that, real dark side. You've kind of always, your characters were always like a good person for the most part. Like, here's the thing with Ariel, she was still young. So, not that you could excuse her behavior, but you could kind of like, give her the benefit of the doubt 20 years later if she changed her ways and became a better person.
All I'm saying is there was consent, Mike. There was
Yeah.
consent.
Yeah, exactly. But I mentioned Jack Nicholson, but another movie where you got to play with an all-star cast was Anaconda. And I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. John Voight, Jennifer Lopez, you know, Eric Stoltz, Ice Cube. I mean, so many legendary, people,
Yeah.
Owen Wilson. So, I mean, that had to be, like I said, one of your highlights of your career playing with an all-star cast like that.
Yeah, if I knew then what I know now, just about how everything works, how Hollywood works, how uh, these movies get made, I would have had an easier time. Um, Working around a lot of powerhouses, as Eric Stoltz would say to me, calm down, you're number 7 on the call sheet.
Right.
Yeah, there was a lot of that.
And
Not
that's
just,
the part
and
of the
not just from
business.
the boys.
Yeah.
There's a lot of alienation. I got really close with Owen on that movie. Very intelligent, very funny. I love smart. Teach me something. And he's very, very intelligent. I don't know if people know that, but Owen Wilson is, a lot of his other traits are forgivable because of it. I mean, he's very, very funny, and smart people are the funniest people. So we hung out a lot together. I remember I was reading The Fountainhead, and he was like making fun of me. And he would come to work with these long, like, soliloquies, and he'd be like, "What? That's today?" And he wouldn't have it memorized. People were so frustrated with him, but he was so funny. And then this time with John Voight, um, we would stay. There was we were shooting over the Rio Negro in the spring. There were no bugs because it's an alkaline river. And there was this hotel called the Ariawu Jungle Hotel, and it was built on stilts, like right over the river. And there's no electricity, and you have to take these catwalks to get to each like bungalow and to get to the lobby and whatever. And there's no electricity, there's no running water. The showers are like this pump thing right from the river. So there's like frogs in your shower, but it was incredible. And J Lo and Ice Cube and Stoltzy and whatever, they all stayed on the yacht, where there was, but Owen and John and I stayed in this hotel, and it was an incredible experience just listening to the sounds. And I remember John would drink like a scotch or something, and he would always be reading Elie Wiesel.
Yeah.
He is so into that, and actually got me, I'm looking at my books right now, I wonder if I can see it, actually got me a copy and of what he was reading and wrote something in it. And just, he used to call me Baby Bird, and so he started doing it in the movie. And he was just that gentle, wonderful person. Another one, just like Jack. Didn't try to tell me how to do my job, but allowed me to do my job. Graceful. It was really fun. Yeah. I remember I was on the upper deck of the boat, and I was doing like this scene with Jennifer, and a sandbag came down and hit me on the head, and I was like down. And it was like the only scene I had with Jennifer, and I was like, I'm okay. Let's finish the scene. Let's finish the scene. And she's like, no, we can cut this, right? And never made it in the movie.
Man.
Yeah.
You know,
It wasn't even
Kari,
how you doing, how you feeling, are you okay? None of that.
you know, Kari, though, you know firsthand how tough it is to stay in this business. There have been people, listen, especially childhood actors, they have this great fame, and then it doesn't always, happen when they're adults. That same fame isn't always there. And then there's some people that get fame, and then, they find it hard to get work as they get older. The fact that you're approaching 40 years in this business and you're still working, listen,
I don't know if
it
I'm
doesn't
still
matter.
working, Mike. I'm still pitching. It doesn't mean I'm working right now.
But you
Things
know
have
what?
changed.
You're still involved, and that's the
Yeah, I mean, I'm pitching shows right now. I'm auditioning and stuff like that. But I took a break for a long time to
right.
raise my children, and I couldn't really, it's a full-time job to be an actor. It's not just, oh, they're going
But
to
it
offer
was
me
your,
this.
but
Huh?
it was more your choice, is what I'm saying.
Well,
You've
of
been able.
course.
So when somebody tells you relax, you're seventh or eighth on the, on the sheet or whatever, guess what? It doesn't matter, because I define success by, are you still working? Are you still doing things? And you've been doing it since 1986
Yeah,
and been
I'm
doing
still
it
in it.
consistently. Yeah. And
Still
that's
doing
all
it.
that matters. So I look at it this way. There isn't anybody that could say, well, I'm a much bigger star than her, because guess what? As long as you're working, you're right there with everybody else. And that's how you got to look at it. And that's just my opinion, but that's what I believe to
Well,
be
no,
true.
listen, Mike, I'll take it a step further. I hate it when creators or commentators say, oh, B list, oh, D list actor. Do you know how hard it is to become a D list actor?
Yeah.
And I don't know how many D's you have to suck to get to be an A list actor, but it's really, really hard to get there and to work your. It's hard for kids to come into this business and get representation. So
Yeah.
they have to start from the ground up. They have to make and create their own projects. And that's how it is now. It wasn't like that back then.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do. We have to create our own content, right, Mike? We have to make our own way in the world and not wait for other people to give us the opportunity.
Right. So
That's
let
the
me
whole
ask.
part of my life.
Right. So let me ask you, Kari, any upcoming projects that we could look forward to in 25? I know you said you're pitching things, but any little surprises that you can't tell us right now?
I have some bait on a reality show, and I mean show for a network. With what do you call it? A basket of goodies, with a website and interaction and a podcast and all that stuff. But it would be a divorce DIY, and it would be when women who give up everything to raise a family don't have don't have their finances. They don't know it because they gave it up. They raised children. That's where they're comfortable. And then all of a sudden their husband leaves and they have to start again. And their career is gone and their kids are still growing, and their finances, they don't know what they're doing. And something, you're living on your own, and your toilet breaks. I'll tell you one thing right now. Every other woman I know in a marriage with kids and living how I'm living calls a freaking plumber. Well, when you're divorced, you can't do that anymore. And
Yeah.
you have to reconcile your anger, and you have to reconcile your emotions, your relationship with your children. So it's not just about how to hammer and a nail. It's almost like a queer eye. With different specialists, but a real deep dive into what it means to be canceled as a woman after you've raised your children and not worked. You're literally canceled. I can't get a mortgage for my house that is my house that I owe this much on because a bank doesn't see my spousal support, my judgment as income for a year, 6 months to a year. I have really good credit. I'll be fine. But women get canceled. They have to begin again. And I think it's something really important. It's no Meghan Markle show, but it would be something important and impactful. So I'm working on that.
That sounds really cool. And I really hope that comes to fruition. But I want to thank you, Kari, for giving me some time today. This was a real honor for me. And you really are a credit to the business, but not just the business. You're a credit to your family as well, because you're not just a great actor. You're also a better human being. And this was really fun today. And I applaud you for everything you're doing.
You made me cry. That's not fair.
Sorry about that.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, folks, I'll just end on this. When you look at Kari Wuhrer, I have 4 words for you: Hall of Fame career, because that's what she's had her entire career. And you know what? 40 years in the business, she's done some unforgettable things that I'll take with me as a fan forever. And I know so many people will as well. For In the Spotlight, I'm Mike Kenichi saying good night, everyone.